allows us to not only address the now, but be patient for the future as well. You know, what I realized, some of my own decisions when it came to managing money is if I looked a lot further down the line, I would be in a different position today. So what do I even mean by that? I have some questions I wanted to ask, and it might help drive this point home. Sophia, can I put those questions to the audience?
All right, I don't know if everyone can see, but I've put a poll where how many of you have a savings account?
Okay. Okay, it's almost getting to like 50-50.
Yeah, it looks like it's a 50-50.
Okay, and the next question.
So how many of you understand what a pension is? Gonna give it a few seconds. All right, so majority yes, or understand a bit, and 5% no. Should I put up the next question?
Yep.
So how many of you have bought a house? Give it a few seconds as well. So majority seems to be no. Okay. So mostly no, and I think there's one more question, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how many of you have a 10-year financial goal? All right. So most people have thought about it, but probably don't have, or still working in progress. And then no, they don't have it at all.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So I'm going to quickly share something with you guys that would help. Can I can share my screen, right?
Yes, you can.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I think this kind of brings those questions together nicely, what I'm trying to get across. So I have a business in Dubai. Well, it's actually out of America. And we basically provide technology to banks and financial institutions across Africa. So I've been in the financial industry for the last 15 years. And basically what we have here is a website that is owned by one of my business partners. They're based out of Switzerland. And this basic calculator is going to be very useful for us when we're looking at long-term financial planning. So let's just go straight into it. And I can send this link to Sophia to send to everyone. But let's just say, for example, we managed to save, let's say, $1,000. Okay. So what's that nowadays? That's probably about what's the exchange rate of the dollar and rand at the moment?
It should take you, let me just check. That'll be 16,700.
Okay. So we managed to save $1,000, which is 16,000 rand. And then we were able monthly to save another $100, which is about 1,600 rand. Okay. If we were to invest this correctly, so let's just say we invested it in various what we call funds, as an example, and we were to get maybe 6% returns over 10 years, what we're seeing here is basically we're going to be making over $18,000 or saving over $18,000 plus an additional $1,000. So what we're seeing here is with just some kind of planning, and we're just talking about $1,000 savings and $100, which is 1,600 rand monthly. We're seeing here that over a 10-year period, this is excluding your salaries or once you go into employment, we're saying here that over a 10-year period, that is over $18,000 that could be saved, plus an additional $1,000 from interest, which basically means you're nearly saving $20,000 over a 10-year period from saving $100 a month and from investing. And we can talk about this another time, but what I'm really trying to drive home is the following. When we are looking at when it comes to money, what I've come to realize is a lot of people don't have a long-term plan, and therefore when they get into a certain position and they look back, they realized that they could have done a lot more with their money. And as an example, if you guys wanted to buy a house, obviously you require a bond or a deposit to buy a house. Now, if we were to start saving now and looking at over the next 10 years to buy that house, then we're able to save at least, we're able to put together a plan which dictates how we spend our money and has us an attainable, achievable goal. But if we do not have any planning for the future, then when it gets to the point where we do have some kind of money, then it tends to be never enough, because you've got to a certain level where you need a bigger house, or you need a bigger car, or whatever that may be. And if we start with identifying what we want to target now, so let's just say, you know, we need 50,000 Rand for a deposit, or 100,000 Rand for a deposit. If we divide that over 10-year period, month by month, we're talking about, you know, not even more than 1,000 Rand a month that we have to save over a 10-year period. It becomes a lot more attainable, becomes a lot more easier to start saving with a long-term vision. I just wanted to go back to a couple of stories with our family. So my mum, you know, when I mentioned earlier, we got ourselves in some situations where we couldn't afford to pay the mortgage or the rent. It was just lots of different circumstances. And then unfortunately, in this time, I failed at school. So it was a bit of a tough one, because I failed at school, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it to university, because I got 3 E's. So that means I really failed. So I failed properly, my metrics equivalent, proper failed. And so by God's grace, I got through to university. They still accepted me. And I managed to do a degree in e-commerce technologies. And then I completed a master's in e-commerce technologies as well. That allowed me to work at a company called Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a financial services company. The owner of the company is Michael Bloomberg, who was the mayor of New York and one of the richest men in the world. And from the challenges we faced living in London, I managed to get this job at this company, and then it allowed me to travel the world and also to start looking at building and making money. From this experience working at Bloomberg, I was able to meet with people who are in the financial industry, so that from different banks, different fund managers. And I started to notice the same traits between all these guys and ladies who are making money, who are building wealth. And the key thing across all of them was the financial planning, the putting together the 5, the 10-year goals, the milestones every month, putting money aside, and then trying to identify ways to invest their money. So growing through this, in 2008 was a big crash, the financial crisis. This was the first time it really dawned on me that I need to start learning how to save. So the way I started to learn how to save is, so I'd have obviously my money to put towards a mortgage, my mum's mortgage, to pay for the shopping, to pay for all of the stuff for the family. So I divided my savings, my salary into 4. So 50% of my salary was going to the house, to the family, to anything that is needed there. Then 10% of my salary was going to learning. And then another 10% of my salary was going to savings. And then another 10% of my salary was going to my just general spending. So I started to slowly divide up my salary and then slowly build up from there. So the final 20% was now going into a pension. So a pension basically is where I'm trying to build money towards my retirement, in short. But what I've started to realize is, when I put that money to a pension in my particular company at the time, was that they were matching the money that I was putting in. So that money is automatically being saved, but it's also going towards like a bigger pool of money, and that money is accumulating over time. So at any point in the future, not necessarily when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old, I can also take that pension money out as well. So that is one pool of savings. Then I've got my savings I'm putting away every month from my salary. 50% of my money is going to the house, to the bills, and to everything else that the family needs. and another 10% is going to me to develop my learning. So that's buying books, that's buying podcasts, all sorts of things. And that is how I slowly started building money. And obviously I've come out of university, I've come out with a degree and a master's, so I had debt as well. So I had to pay that off at the same time. So it took a long time to start getting to a position where I actually had money. And then I moved to Dubai. So I moved to Dubai to work across Africa. So I've been coming to South Africa for 8 years. And in that time, I started to understand about real estate in South Africa. And because Dubai is tax-free, it helped also to help reduce all my costs. And I started to look at buying real estate in South Africa. So again, it was trying to save. And then I started to look at how to invest in different, aside from pensions, but also invest in different things that has allowed me to slowly build wealth. And I was able to buy a house in Cape Town, in Bloberg. And now I rent that house out, and I have a company managing that property in Bloberg, and I get a rental income from there. But what I really want to echo and reinforce is two things. That 10-year plan, I plan to buy the house over a 5-year period, because I want to have something to give to my children when they come. They're not here yet. I still need to get married. But what I realized is that forward thinking has helped me to not spend my money on other things, but to focus on particular goals. And in that, it's helped start achieving some investment opportunities, which has allowed me to build wealth, not only for now, but also for the future. Any questions so far?
All right, if anyone has any questions, please type in the chat. We're happy to give you feedback, because Richard is here available for us to get as much knowledge from him. All right.
Okay.
So from my side, Richard, when you talked about your focus on long-term savings,
Yeah.
how is it like from a peer pressure? Because like there's a lot of things going on around you, people your age, and nice cars, want to dress nice and other things. How do you stay focused and not get distracted?
So it's a very good question. I think, well, it's a very good question. It does require a lot of determination. It requires a lot of focus and discipline. And I think that all boils down to identity. I think if you know who you are, then you're not then swayed by the wind. I think knowing who you are and what your purpose is and what you're called to do, I think is actually the fundamental part to all of this, because I feel when you know where you're going, then you're not going to get sidetracked or distracted by other people. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, that's good. And I think that kind of tail doves to the topic we had the first session last Saturday. We talked about self-discovery. And it's really like you're saying, if you really just kind of own your story and you own your narrative, knowing who you are, it helps you also with the value systems that you build, helps you with the focus on your finances as well.
Definitely, because I think if you know that your long-term vision is to either build a business or help young people, or you're meant to be the one that's gonna teach in schools or be a doctor, or what that requires, and anything less than almost perfect is, you know, you may not be able to achieve it. So then that time is important, right? You can't get time back. And
Right.
so yeah, so that's I guess helps. There we go. Okay, that helps basically with staying focused. I saw a question in here.
Yes, there's a question.
Yeah. So how can a student in varsity with the current COVID-19 situation save and budget? You know, I had a conversation with my sister the other day. So as I mentioned before, you know, my mom has a hair salon. 5 years ago, we converted it into a company that just sells hair. And, you know, because of the COVID situation, it means that my mom's not able to go to the physical location to actually cater to customers. So we're trying to change the narrative, change the way we interact with customers, so everything is online. And what I came to realize through this exercise is, you know, the world is actually a huge marketplace, which is now being made available to us by the internet. So what am I trying to say? So I said to my sister, you know, in addition to the different weaves that we sell, the wigs that we sell, can't we just sell hairbrushes that are maybe $2? What's that? 15 Rand, 30 Rand, and sell those online, and it has a message on it, you know. So let's just make this a bit more relatable. If I was to sell some hairbrushes that had a strong statement on it within my town, within my community in Joburg, I could potentially reach maybe, who knows, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people a day. But if I'm able to make that available, that same hairbrush for 30 Rand, 10 Rand, and make it available on Amazon or just online, I can reach 1 million people. There's people who are 19 years old, 20 years old today who are making millions of dollars by selling stuff for hair, like whether it be hair grease or hair gel, because that audience, that community is so wide now that you'd be surprised on how you can save and budget if you actually think a bit more entrepreneurial. So saving and budgeting on no salary, if you're working, if you're a university, do you have a job? Because if you do, then fair enough, maybe there is a little bit you can save. But when I was at university, it was very hard to save because, you know, I basically have to get all my books. I've got to pay for my rent and everything else. So actually, this is a time where potentially I might come up with a business idea. That business idea might be what makes me money and allows me to save and budget. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Thanks, Richard. There was another question as well.
Yeah. Yes, I had that problem when it comes to saving. Saying no to people. So what I've done now is when it comes to giving money to people, I'm only giving money to people when I know I can give it away. So if I'm in a position where I can give that money away, then I'll give it to someone. Because I've been in situations where I've lent money to people. I've had situations where I've given money to people and I've needed it because I've got myself in tricky situations, and it's left me in a challenge because they were unable to give me the money back. So what I've learned is I'm only going to lend money to people when I know I can give it away, because then I do not have any expectations. But also when I look at my money, I look at it in a way that this is money that I actually do not need. If I do not need that money, then I can give it away. But if you ask yourself that question, do you need that money yourself? I think 99% of the time you'll need it.
Yeah.
So it's
And
a
Richard,
bit easy to say no. Yeah, sorry.
mhm. And just to add to that, exactly what you're saying, what I used to do as well, if someone wants, let's say 200, I would give them, if I can afford to part with 20, I'll give them 20, and then they'll have to figure out how to get the rest of the money. Because if I give them the full 200 and I know that I'll regret having given them, like you said, they might not be able to give it back to me. And then now I break up the relationship because now there's like this negative vibe now going between the people. So it just
Yeah,
kind of complicates a lot of things. So I think it's really, like you're saying, if I can part with it, it's fine. But if you're a person that's really prone to giving, just budget your giving. Put it part of your allocation, like what Richard was saying, allocating certain percentages. Make it a planned type of giving. So if you say 5% or 2% is for giving for those ad hoc requests, but I might not be able to fulfill the full amount, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I see there's another Joanne Hill.
Yeah, Joanne has a question. Just from a recap, maybe just as, since you have to log off shortly, maybe just kind of conclude maybe your key message and what you want to leave the audiences with.
Sure. So in short, I grew up in a single parent home, and being raised by my mom has taught me a lot of different things. And then one of the main things is that she was able to basically build and run a business while having 5 kids. And she was able to also buy 2 houses. And most of that journey, she had no money. So you have to figure that one out. But in that whole experience, being raised by a single parent where she's basically doing everything, there was some things that she did that was amazing. And there's certain things that we experienced because we couldn't pay the mortgage, because we got ourselves in difficult situations where, I don't want to go into too much detail, but in short, where, people come to the house aggressively to ask for their money back, and lots of different stories. And through that, it basically opened my eyes to realize that there has to be more planning in place. Setting long-term goals helps dictate your current present state. If I know that in 10 years' time, I need to achieve a certain amount of money because I'm trying to acquire something or build something, it will dictate how I spend my money. It will actually dictate your actions every day. You will know then you can't do certain things because you've got a long-term plan. So as an example, if we wanted to buy a house in Johannesburg, 3 bedrooms, swimming pool, it cost 1.5 million rand. That may require a 20% or 30% deposit. Let's call it 20%, which equates to, what's that, nearly 200,000 rand. 200,000 rand over 10 years is basically just under 2,000 rand a month. That's to be saved. Oh, sorry, 200 rand a month. That's to be saved over a 10-year period. In 10 years' time, you could have a house, 3 bedroom for your family, because you were intentional. You had a plan, and it allowed you to save in an attainable way. That's within your means. That time period could be reduced because your salary increases. You'll be more successful with your company you work for, your business that you've developed. But with the plan in place, it's going to save so much headache, so much heartache, and a lot of time will not be wasted because you've got a plan in place. And, as I mentioned before, I bought a house in South Africa, and that's because I have a plan in place for now, but also for the next 30 years. I was in a fortunate position that I was able to leave London and move to another country. But then I was thinking in my mind, I want to create or make sure I have money aside for my kids in the future. So I want to make sure that I start saving and put money away for them, so that when they get to the 15, 16 years old, that they're not thinking about what food to eat, what they have to wear. They're not concerned about, are we going to be able to pay our bills? Because I've invested a long time earlier to make sure that they're okay. So for quite a long period of time, I've been strategically saving. So I put 50% of my money or my salary to the house, to house commitments, family. Then 10% of it I'm putting towards my own personal education. Another 10% of it I'm putting towards investing in pensions. Sorry, 10% is the savings. Another 10% to just having cash to spend, and 20% to my pension. And that's how I divide my savings. And then I've got a 10-year goal in mind to make sure I'm able to attain the things that I need to build wealth for my family and the future family to come.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Richard. Well put. All right.
Yeah, so I've got one slide I wanted to share with everyone, if that's okay.
Perfect. Please
Yeah.
go ahead.
I hope this helps a little bit. Because when it comes to saving and investing, I want you guys to be different to everyone else. I want every single person on the call to be looking at investing from a value perspective. What does that mean? What you tend to find is we have a lot of the time look at things because of what everyone else is doing, and we can invest in things because of what people are investing in. But what I want to encourage today is I want people to look at things because of the value it holds. Everything you look at when you're investing, think about value. What does that mean? So I'm going to quickly show an image and just go through that, just so that you guys can really understand that investing is not just real estate, but a lot more. And it could be in small amounts, right? So here we're seeing how we, as a family on this call, can start thinking about investing, right? And building wealth. So from today, you might see some valuable furniture in your family's homes, right? And some people may dismiss the value of this furniture, but there is some furniture in Africa that is unique to African families. But someone in London, for example, will see it as rare because African furniture doesn't really get sold in London or Hong Kong or the US. And so you may treat it as something that is just normal. But if you could really see the value of the furniture in your home, and I'm talking about stuff that looks really African, like the African stuff like you see in Wakanda, that you might see in Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, if any of you have seen it, like the African furniture. And that could have a lot more value than you realize. I used to work at a company called Harrods in London, and you could buy silver spoons for, let's call it 1,000 Rand or 2,000 Rand. Now, to a lot of us, buying a spoon that is 2,000 Rand does not seem like it is valuable. We wouldn't see it as something that makes sense. Why would you spend 2,000 on a silver spoon when you could use 2,000 Rand to buy credit on my phone, to top up or to do something else? But see, when I invest 2,000 Rand in a silver spoon, that silver spoon may be worth 20,000 Rand in 5 years' time. Some of you may have older brothers or sisters or family members that have vinyls. So vinyl is the old way of listening to music where you put it on the deck and you play. Now, some of those vinyls, if you check on Google, could be worth anywhere between $500 to $1,500 each. The way technology is moving, some of the stuff that we used maybe 10 years ago, like a CD player, like even just like an old Nintendo, these things have become so old so quickly that now they become almost like antiques. In 10 years time, you know, a DVD, which we used only 5 years ago, will be obsolete. It's going to become something that is an antique. And actually, because it's now technically unusable, people might see worth in it. How many of you would invest in artwork? How many of you find artwork valuable? You know, certain people invest hundreds and thousands of dollars in art because they know it increases in value. It might be very cheap now, but it could be valuable in the future. And when you may need money in the future, you could sell this and add it to your overall wealth. So what I wanted to encourage today is there's actually a lot more ways to invest apart from the standard real estate or maybe investing in stocks or bonds. But actually there's stuff that may be around you that you actually own or your family own, that they may not see the value in it, but you realize in 5-10 years time, this could increase in value. And these are just the examples of it. So I hope that makes sense.
Excellent input, Richard. And I think even when you watch some of these reality shows in different countries, they've got people where they find value in, you know, things that have been stored away, and you find it's an amazing antique, a piece that someone can actually benefit from, whether someone is the collector or they're selling it. And I think most of you might have grown up on farms. It's good to go back and visit and see and rummage through the barns and see what's out there, because you never know. And I love the way you're making it practical as well, because many times we think, oh my goodness, I have to invest in something big, but I don't have that money. So, but you have something.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. You'd be very surprised. My mom used to always hold things in the house. I don't know about any of you guys, but my mom loves to just have stuff. She'll Richard, we need to put that one in the back house, please. You know, Richard, we need to just do this, do that, put that one there. No, that one we need. And what I started to realize is actually, you know, there's certain things that, you know, we don't realize we hold that has value, because we now see value in a different perspective. But actually, there's actually a lot of things that we own that could be valuable.
Excellent. All right. So any other questions? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't see any more questions. All right. So if no one has any questions, I think, Richard, I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover.
Yeah, sure. One last thing from my side. Okay, Tendai has a question.
Tendai has a question. All right, so type away, Tendai, as Richard maybe continues speaking.
Sure. I'm just going to say the final piece of the jigsaw is faith. You know, I'm not sure where everyone is at in their belief in regards to their belief system, but what I will have to say is on my side, you know, we've gone through some dramatic moments in our family, a lot of different stories, a lot of different scenarios. Just to give you some ideas, you know, we've had people come and threaten to kill our family. We've had, like I said earlier, times where we look like we may have to be homeless. We've had situations where there's in-house fighting with our family. Like we've had situations where, you know, all kinds of spiritual stuff, some people call it witchcraft, has happened. All kinds of things. And what I've come through all of that, I've realized is that when I've spent time praying, that, you know, God has always been faithful. And, you know, even when sometimes you are unable to see how you're going to get out through a situation, when you look back, you realize that actually God was all over it the whole time. His timing and your timing are two different things. And I feel like once you realize, you know, and you're able to realize what your calling is, what your purpose is, what you're born to do, because there's no one individual is here by chance, that you actually put on this earth at this particular time for a reason. Once that resonates with you, you understand it, then you'll realize that God is always directing your path. And when you're praying and spending time understanding who created you and obviously who directs you, then you'll realize that even in those tough moments, you have something to hold on to, and you realize when you look back what was going on. So I just wanted to encourage people not to be fearful, not to worry, even during those crazy times, that you'll come through it.
All right, so Tendai has posted a question.
Yep. Awesome. I think it's a great question, because I've been having the same question. And if I left my company 1 year ago, and I'm just going to be very transparent with you guys. The reason I left my company is because I had this dream, and in this dream, I was walking to my desk. I got to my desk, and I saw a suitcase on my desk, and I opened the suitcase, and then there was ties in the suitcase, just ties that you wear for work. And there was lots of them. There's loads of these ties. And when I looked at all the ties, every single tie had been cut. And I woke up and I started thinking about that dream. And I really felt that I was told to cut all ties in my company. That was last year. That was 2 years ago, actually. And then it's taken me a while to move on it and to act on it and be faithful with what I was told to do. So I did it last year, April. Fast forward to July last year, my bank gets frozen. My bank gets frozen for 6 months. And in that time, I'm learning a lot of lessons. I'm learning a lot of lessons. And that question is the same thing that I was asking myself even before COVID. Can you imagine during COVID? So during this time of having your bank frozen and not having access to much money, it has made me realize what we're saying today is even more important. That 10-year goals, the way you save is even more important, because you do not know what's going to come tomorrow. You do not know. So you have to make provision for it. Now, during COVID, I've only just got back on my feet because I had my bank frozen for 6 months and I've only just started my own company. So now I'm thinking, how do I navigate through this with my own business? I've just started a business during COVID-19 and all my customers are in Africa. So I can't even fly there. And there was a couple of things that I've been thinking about to answer your question. And one of them is obviously wisdom, right? So how do I start again? I've got to be innovative. I've got to think about problems I can solve. What problems can you solve? Because what I realize is the bigger problem you can solve, the more money you make. And it's not money just to be made for superficial reasons, but we're trying to build wealth, right? So I've got to start thinking first and foremost, what am I trying to solve here? Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to say. So, with my business, because my customer doesn't necessarily want my particular solution, I've had to partner with other businesses so that if they don't like my solution, they're definitely going to like one of my other partners' solutions. So it means that during this time, I can still have a conversation with my customer. Same way, when we're trying to start again personally, we've got to always be thinking of, one, what problems can we solve? And two, what ways can we be creative with what money we can make? So as an example, one of my friends, she just lost her job, okay, literally 3 weeks ago. So we sat down and I started to try and understand, what is she good at? What kind of things does she like? What's the things she's passionate about? And what we came to, the conclusion was her passion is artwork and singing. My question to you is, what are the stuff you're passionate about? What are the stuff you're interested in that you could potentially pursue now and generate money from while you're trying to get back in a job or trying to get your business up and running? What can you do that you don't care if you get paid for, that you can use to start making money during this crazy time? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Excellent. All right. Okay. Someone typing something else? Okay. All right, so it's right at 11 o'clock in South Africa. So if you do any closing words, Richard, from you, thank you so much for facilitating this session of the Money Moves for Own Your Crown platform for this bootcamp of reimagining ourselves and just making sure that we continue to be strong even in the pandemic and throughout. And as we come out of it, we definitely know that we'll be stronger, wiser, and be able to be money savvy.
Yeah, 100%. I just think it's a pleasure to meet everyone virtually today. And I'm not going to stand here or sit here and say that it's easy during a global pandemic that has seen 1 million people lose their jobs and all sorts of things that have happened. I'm not denying that, but what we do have to do is remain faithful, remain bold and confident in the one that created us. And secondly, it's your passion, your vision of where you're going will stand the test of time. You know, those things that bubble up inside of you, those things that you dream about all the time, that energy that you have from it will allow you to run through brick walls. It will allow you to get through a COVID-19. It will allow you to wake up and spend hours working on what you are passionate about. And I'm a big believer that, you know, that those feelings you have inside, those dreams that you have, that, you know, you can't fathom because it just comes to you. You know, that is definitely been given to you. And those gifts that you have, you can't let them be left to the wayside. You gotta, you know, push for those dreams. Like all those things that you have inside you, don't be scared of no one. Be bold, confident in yourself, because you're uniquely and fearfully and wonderfully made. And there's no one person that's like you on this planet. So you just got to go for it.
All right, now you speak our language, Richard.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Wow. So we really appreciate your time investing in us and sowing into us. And we pray that your seeds get realized and you're able to bear the fruit of everything that you've planted in us and watered our seeds as well that we have and the dreams of financial freedom.
Awesome. Thank you. Same to you guys.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to hearing some good stories from everyone. Have a nice day.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. All right.
Bye.
So ladies, you've heard from Richard. It was an amazing session. So I'm going to cover just kind of to recap on the financial savviness where I personally have had to work through my own finances as well. But I think for all of us, you know, when it comes to finances, it's like, can you give me practical tips and hacks? So we'll conclude today's session with on that note. And so what I did is I went for a women's session when I was facilitating a women's network group. And one of the guest speakers that we invited to that session, her name was Ann Wilson. I think some of you might know of her, Ann Wilson. And she has a book called The Wealth Chef. The Wealth Chef. So we'll definitely share with you as part of the resources on Own Your Crown platform, so you can get to see a little bit about that book. And it really takes everything that Richard was sharing in a very beautiful, practical way from just maybe like a recipe perspective. So she talks about investments, she talks about expenses, she talks about assets, she talks about liabilities, and she covers the income. So all the steps that you need to have a financial feast and in your life and just living the life of your dreams. And for her, she also kind of like had built her wealth and then she lost everything and had to rebuild it. And it's amazing how sometimes we feel that if we've lost something, that means that's the end of us. We'll never recover again. And obviously the pandemic is definitely has taken a lot out of people. Some people have lost income, and it must be devastating for a lot of people where they don't know if they'll be able to stay where they are. Some have had to move in with family. So the situation is dire for a lot of people. And there's another lady who's also very motivational on financial management. And she talks about it's not about making money, it's really about creating wealth. And so she said that when she lost her house, she lost her car, and her husband had matching Range Rovers. Imagine couple goals. This is something we see on Instagram. People post, like Bay and Bay have matching cars. So you can think of it as like they're living the life. But they lost that during the financial crisis, and they just started a business. And one of the things that they would say to each other after they'd lost everything, they would look and see maybe a Range Rover on the road, instead of feeling sorry for themselves, instead of complaining, instead of feeling jealous about other people's success. They would look at each other and say, been there, done that, on our way back. So it's like, you know what, no matter what, I'm on my way back. So don't ever feel like you are kind of like a failure when you've missed maybe saving and you thought, okay, I'll be saving now, and then you don't save. So some of the life hacks that I'd like to share with you is having a grocery list. A grocery list is always something that we all do. And I'm sure during COVID, when we're told to stock up our refrigerators and to stock up our pantries with perishable, non-perishable foods, and most of you have become like amazing chefs. And so I've seen Sophia post some food that she's made for her family. But think of that whenever you go grocery shopping, look at the different ads that they have from different grocery stores, the specials that they have. Maybe they have a special on chicken. Maybe they have a special on fish. Maybe they have a special on beef. Make sure that you are maximizing and taking advantage of those specials. That's something simple that you can do. Don't just kind of like make 5 trips up and down to the grocery store, and because now there's the freedom of movement, and then you forget to buy the milk, and then you forget to buy the bread. Just try to do the list together, even as a family. I found that worked with my children, and as they started growing up, they started helping me with the grocery list, because there were things that they specifically would want, and then I might forget or assume that it's in the house, but it's not there. So they started helping me. And then I also started going with them grocery shopping, and they started understanding the importance of saving. And they'll tell me, Mom, the sugar was on special today, and I used the loyalty card. And so part of saving is not just for you as the woman, it's also a family affair. So make sure that you include your children in the grocery planning, let them see how much it costs. Or if they go buying for clothing, that's another way to hack on your savings, is tell your children, let's say if they're at that age where they don't want you to buy their clothes for them. I'm sure most of you parents are complaining about that, where the children, like, you buy them something and they never wear it. It's like, Mom, that is like whack. That is not in style. So you kind of have to reconfigure how you do the clothing shopping. We're not doing a lot of clothing shopping right now, but there are a lot of sales, so you might want to take advantage of that. But I always would say, okay, the allocated budget for your clothing shopping is X amount. Instead of walking around with just a credit card, sometimes it seems like no one knows what the budget or the limit is. And then you'll find they'll pick up a pair of jeans, which is designer. And then now you're arguing about, no, we can't afford it. So you can avoid all those stressful discussions in the middle of the mall, and just kind of go prepared and say, okay, the budget is this amount, and roam around, look where there's a sale, or I'll assist you, or find something that you really, really want. It might be 2 pieces of outfit instead of 5 of things that you really don't need. So that allows people to think through. Another thing that I would like to advise is on transport. Plan your trips, because fuel is not too expensive right now, but it still counts. And that's money that you can save and reallocate to something else. So always plan your trip. So plan your days. Know which days are going to be errand running days. Which days do you do grocery shopping, or try to do things on the way in a certain route. Plan your route for the day. So if you're going to visit someone, or you're going to pick up something out of your way, then try to stop by maybe your pharmacy, pick up the medication, and cut back on the back and forth trips, because I used to do that. At one point I would just go up and down, and then after a while, when money got tight, then I realized I couldn't afford to do that anymore. But then I would map out my days, and that allows you also to save on time, because then if someone wants to meet up with you or drop something off, then you can also pre-plan your day. Then I think a cost that has gone up now, I think all of us can agree and attest to it, that it is data. Our telecom costs, if you've got children studying from home, if you're working from home, if you're having to connect with family from home, that has gone up. So make sure that you find out what's the best package for you, what's the best, if you're on a contract, see what deals they have. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Reign network, where they've got a SIM card where you can have access to data during the day. It cuts off at 6 p.m., but they do have like a little top up after hours. But those are like the things that people are now kind of like taking advantage of, especially to kind of like subsidize on what they already have, especially if the company's not paying for their online access. And then look through your electricity bill. It's winter time now. If you have a fireplace, get it cleaned out and start using that. There might be places where they might be doing developments and they cut down the trees. Try to drive by those places and collect the firewood instead of paying for firewood that you know is going to just burn in a minute, like paper. And or ask a friend, hey, where can I get good firewood? Maybe it's in the outskirts of town, or maybe you go visit a friend out outside your area. You might be able to find something that you want. So so if you need anything, definitely just make sure that you are asking for tips from other people and be able to get help. So I put my video on in case everyone wants to see me. So I've given you the life hacks on just the basic necessities of what people need. And if you have any comments on chat, please share some of your life hacks that have worked for you. And definitely then we can share with everyone else on the platform. But the book I was talking about is called The Wealth Chef by Ann Wilson. So some of you might be familiar with it. She's a South African woman. She's quite active on social media. You can Google her, and she posts quite a lot of great content on wealth management, but it's really also about life goals and life hacks. And if you look at your so one of the things that she gives as a tip as well is really about personal awareness, and says, what drives your spending? Is it maybe you're feeling low and then you're saying, oh, it's retail therapy, or, what are your value systems? Maybe you want to let people know what brands you wear and things like that. So that's another way to diagnose where your money's going, and it helps you to manage it better. And then when you do have a surplus, then yes, you can spend on what you want to spend on, but at least know where your money's going. So it's called The Wealth Chef by Ann Wilson. And another thing that I would like to advise you to do is, when you do your budget, always make a list of your budget. I attended a financial training session, and I was going through a divorce. And during that time, it was very confusing for me because, when you've got two households and you're planning your finances together, there are a lot of things that you don't worry about. But now you kind of have to do it on your own. So if any of you are having to split your incomes, especially if you're going through a divorce, just try to have a budget list separate from the additional income from the other party. So make sure that you budget everything according to what you're earning by yourself, because then it allows you to prepare for emergencies, especially, let's say, if there's any disruption in the money that's supposed to support you or your income, you're able to work through that. So that's important. So when you do your budget, look at the different amounts that you have, and then try to see how low you can go. So maybe you're currently spending, let's say, $4,000 on groceries. see if you can go down to 3,000. If you're spending, let's say 200 on airtime, maybe see if you can go down to 150. And then if you're managing on 150, try to go lower. So that's how you can manage your budget as well. Because I used to facilitate financial literacy sessions in different communities. And we used to have this activity where we just kind of discuss and say, okay, guys, how on average, how much do you spend on eating out? Maybe it's your pizza, or you're ordering in, now it's takeout where they deliver the food. How much on average do you actually spend? And many a times we don't keep track of that. But if we were to allocate a certain amount, maybe it is 400 per month, then what you want to do is to say, okay, the 400, do I have to spend it every month? Maybe I can swap around. So one of the hacks that we can advise you on is pizza. If it's pizza night and you've got children who love their pizza, sometimes the toppings do kind of hike the price up a little bit. So maybe you can just buy a margarita type of pizza base with tomato and cheese only, and then you can add the toppings from home. So maybe you got lots of vegetables at home, you can just add the topping and put it in the oven, and then let it kind of like, you know, warm up a little bit more, get it fresh, and then have that for the night. So you don't have to spend as much with something that's like fully loaded on beef. If you can, if you've got leftover beef at home, maybe you roasted some beef and you've got sliced it nice and thin. Maybe you got leftover chicken roast, you can add it to the top, and you've got chili and onion and avo. So that's a nice hack that you can actually incorporate for yourself. And I think someone added something on clothing where they're mentioning that there is factories where you can actually buy for less. Hopefully I'm correct, because I'm not able to view the comment right now, but definitely go through the comments and see where you can save as well. So I don't know if anyone has any questions at this time before we continue to conclude today's session. Any comments? All right. So I'm sure everyone has found this session very helpful. I just want to remind you that when it comes to money, it's really about dignity, and it's really about owning your life. And I love the fact that this boot camp is talking about reimagining. So you can imagine when sometimes you have to facilitate financial literacy training to someone who's lost everything. Maybe they're in a halfway house and they don't even have a job. They're trying to get back on their feet again. And so the information on money management is not just for the wealthy. It's also for the people who are saying, I'm having to start from scratch. I'm having to rebuild my life again. So make sure that you try to have these discussions as a couple, what your financial planning goals are, have them with your family as well, maybe your children, let them understand. And we always say we sometimes envy other people when we see them, you know, doing well, they're driving a fancy car, but we actually don't calculate how much that car costs. So one of the activities that I would always remind people to say, okay, imagine this executive who's got an amazing job and he's living in the burbs. And which neighborhood is it? How much on average are the homes in that neighborhood? And then when you do find out how much that is costing that person per month, how much is the mortgage on a monthly basis? So people are paying like 25,000 to 30,000 a month, 50,000, even up to 60,000 a month for monthly mortgage per month. This is not their income. This is how much they're spending on a mortgage. Then let's add the fact that they've got to drive a car that matches that lifestyle. Because this is what helps us to stop comparing ourselves with other people who seem like they've made it, or they look like, or they have actually made it. But let's bring it back to reality and find out how much are they actually spending. So for that beautiful car that they're driving around Santon and with the top down, maybe they're having to pay, let's say 10,000 per month for their car payment. So there's and then they've got children. Maybe they've got another car, which is a fancy, beautiful car, which now they've got maybe 2 kids who are going to private school. So how much are they paying for the school fees for that child, for each child? So maybe they're paying more than, you name it, so keep on topping up and say, okay, just to live that lifestyle, to maintain that lifestyle, what does it actually take? How much does it take? Because sometimes we live in the fantasy, or we get bogged down with the envy, and we just think like everybody else has it easy. But just think of that individual, how much they're having to make sure and ensure that they've got an income coming in to maintain that lifestyle. So can you afford that lifestyle? If you can't, just double down and just kind of look through your expenses, live with contentment where you are, but still have a long-term goal. Like Rich was saying, there's a long-term goal. And Sophia's saying, for those in SA and interested in getting a financial planner, so there's input where you can actually get financial support. So make sure that you get a financial advisor. I did an interview one time with a young lady who actually, she's not in finances, but she's an entrepreneur. So ever since she started in high school, and she started being very entrepreneurial, she was never the one to go straight into corporate. She always was an entrepreneur. She's still one, and she's worked with corporates to consult with them. But one of the things that she always said, she says she was very diligent with her money, and her mom used to be able to boost some of the finances to pay the school fees in the beginning of the year for the full year. So she never was that kid who worried about going home because school fees was not paid. And the way her single mom did it was through stokvels. So she did stokvels. She was just working on that. Whenever she'd get her lump sum money, instead of buying a television, instead of buying a fancy sofa, she would just pay the school fees off. So that's how she was managing. And that's why we said your value system drives your spending behavior. And then another thing that I would advise you to do is, on a weekly basis, always reflect on your finances and say to yourself, hey, what did I spend my money on? And then when you look at it, it's like, okay, January it was this and this and this. And then you ask yourself, was it a need or a want? Was it a need or a want? I just wanted, or was it a need? And then you can see the percentage of how much your budget is allocated to wants versus needs. So that'll help you now to maybe re-engineer how you're spending your money. Like we said, reimagine your finances. Because many times we always say, I don't have enough. But if you start looking at it more attentively and being intentional, that'll help you. And then, yeah, so Sophia is saying also happy to research other African institutes like LifeCheck if you need that. So definitely follow through on those resources, because when we post the video, we'll add the resources that you can now go into. And so make sure that you are looking at your finances. One other thing that I personally did was I went to the bank, and nowadays you can print out from your ATM. There's an ATM where you can print out your bank statement. If you do online banking, you can look through your bank statement and see your 3-month spending. Just do a review of your performance on your financial management to say, where am I? What have I spent my money on? And many times we overlook bank fees, we overlook where we're spending, and then we sometimes, don't realize that there's money coming out of our account. And you can rework maybe your bank plan. Maybe just talk about with your bank, your financial advisor, or just talk to your bank again and just say, hey guys, can I be on a different plan because I'm not using this service anymore? Because your lifestyle could have changed. So make sure that you're also very aware about what your bank fees are, because a lot of people, when we ask them, what are your bank fees? We don't know. All we know is I'm putting in this amount of money, the checking is working or the savings is working, but maybe they're better deals. So sometimes it might mean changing banks. If you want to build your savings account, Richard mentioned about savings, which is really, really good, where you allocate it in percentage points. So make sure that you can do it according to your lifestyle. Everybody's got a different profile. So make sure that you also rework that. But one of the things that I always say when it's savings, try to have your savings in a bank that you don't have your checking activity. So have accounts with multiple banks. The same thing which Richard was saying, his bank was frozen. So imagine if you only have one bank, only that you bank with. So it's good to have another bank that you bank with. So that could be your where you put your savings, because then you know you don't have your bank card and you don't try to access that amount constantly. So try to use a bank where you don't, you know, there's no ATM close to you, especially if the kids want to have cash, maybe for fundraising at school or something like that. Just try to manage that a little bit more, where you also kind of like manage your urge to be swiping constantly. So try not to bring that bank card with you when you go shopping, leave it somewhere secure, and then focus on the savings one. Another hack is, a friend of mine, she used to put a small amount constantly towards December. So December time period, she would put money in there, and then she realized that, you know, after she does the Christmas groceries, she's done her visiting family, she'd end up with nothing. So she had another bank that she put a certain amount away, and that amount would take her from January to February. So remember how January always becomes like that nightmare of a month because everybody's struggling. So she always had a buffer. She didn't have children, but I thought that was quite wise, because a lot of us who have children, we start making it seem like it's a surprise that January has come through. So we've got a few months to go till next year, or right now we're having to readjust with the school system, but just try to also put away an amount that you know will take you through January and February month period when it's the toughest. So I think on that note, I don't have anything else to add, but if anyone has a question or a comment, I'll definitely leave it for Sophia and Tendai to comment there. Okay. So I'm just looking at the comments as well. Okay, so that's the chat. I think there was like a Q&A. Okay. Any other questions? All right, Sophia or Tendai? Okay, so Tendai saying, one thing I did that really helped manage the monthly spending is, after paying bills, I withdrew an allowance for myself in cash. Once the money's spent, that's it for the month. That allowance is basically for wants and whims. Yeah, very good. So you actually have that. Some people do envelopes where they just see it. Once it's gone, it's gone. Sharon was saying Johannesburg has a lot of factory shops and demo stores that still offer warranties on bought goods. Excellent. So how many things do we, you know, end up discarding when they actually could have been under warranty, that we could have actually replaced or be able to get fixed? So definitely good input on that. So make sure that you manage your spending. Okay, so Joanne, what do you think about saving in a 32-day account? So anyone who's had experience on the 32-day account, that was an individual that did that and they found that it was helpful. But the thing was that it just kind of like helped. I think this is where we talk about delayed gratification. So that 32-day account is really just emphasizing to say, can you exercise discipline, especially if you know that you're impulsive buyer. You spend and you're not, you know, you're not going to manage your whims, you know, of wanting to spend. So that could work very well. So it depends on why you want to do it. But once you do that, then maybe roll it over to something long term. And like I always say, try to put the savings in an account that you're not accessing. And that's way more than 32 days, right? It's going to be way more than 60 days is good. So that's part of building your 10-year plan that you might be looking at, and then maybe investing it in something that can yield a little bit more results. But you definitely, depending on your lifestyle, then yes, the 32-day account would be really good. And because you're practicing, it's a muscle that you're training to say, let's do the saving thing. Okay. Okay, any other questions? I love the activity on this. I'm sure you all found this helpful. Yeah, Joanne, you're welcome. This was a really good topic for the boot camp. I mean, I'm on a journey as well where I'm just continuously not shying away, because women in general do tend to avoid the money talks, and yet we are the most creative. We are the most people who are is apt enough to actually manage finances, but we do get distracted. You know, we want to look good, we get caught up in the frivolous things of life, but actually we can be very money savvy, we can be very smart with our finances. So let's kind of harness that feminine spirit that we have that will help us to be resourceful. You heard from Richard, he said one woman who raised 4 children, she was able to make a meal stretch. There was a time when we were going through financial, kind of like tightening our belt. And I used to say, okay, because I was raising big boys, and I used to think I only have to always have like a big old chicken. And this one Afrikaans lady, she was saying, Rebecca, I'm raising like 3 boys, and I buy 2 chicken breasts, because that's the money I only had. I didn't have money, and I'll chop it up into pieces, make a stew, make a soup, she made like a whole lot of things, adding vegetables to make it more meaty and more soulful and hearty, and just making it a packed high protein meal, lentils and beans, whatever else she could add to that dish. And that taught me something. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can actually, the days when I can't afford the big chicken, I can actually just buy a few pieces of chicken and then make a different creative recipe from that. And you'll be amazed. The kids will love it. And if you're by yourself, find hacks as well on things that you can freeze, and you can just warm up whenever you need to eat, so that make it stretch when you buy in bulk. Okay. All right. Anything else or any other questions before we close out? All right. Okay, so I really want to thank everyone that logged on today, everyone that decided to join this session. We hope at Own Your Crown that we were able to provide great input into your lives, encourage you along your journey as you own your crown, as you own your day, as you own your narrative, and just continue to be women who are savvy. And Tendai is also talking about another hack. I love that. So she is, let me see. So she is saying another cutting hack is learning to make the most with what we have, and be it clothes, food in the cupboard. Force yourself to come up with new looks, beauty tricks, recipes with what you do have. Resist the urge to go out and buy everything. Yeah, every time. So when you need something, it's the same thing with having a home. Many times we always say, actually, instead of fixing, just fix the home, do things that you need to do. Maybe it's a broken door. It's not about changing everything completely. Just use what you have, because many a times when it comes to our goals, it's really about saying, what do you have right now in your hands, and what can you start with while you still work on your long-term goal to making something new. So be faithful with the little that you have, so when you do have more, you're able to manage it even better. Absolutely. Can you give us insights on saving offshore investments? So I'm not savvy on that topic, but what we'll do is we'll get you some resources on the offshore topic. Absolutely. Because I think now we're living in a global community and we're global citizens. So the offshore investments is definitely a great idea. But I think Richard also kind of alluded to that on topic of property investments in other countries. And I'm seeing, like, before the lockdown, there were advertisements of meet and greets about investing in other countries like Dubai for property, and other property investments in other countries. So I think that's one way. However, we'll definitely get more information for you. Thank you for posting that question. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello. Hey,
Thank you so
Tendai.
much for an amazing session. I think Sophia's just having difficulties logging in and out, but I just wanted to personally say thank you for this amazing session and the amazing cost-cutting hacks that you've shared with us. And I just hope that all the ladies that tuned in this morning, you know, all of the information shared today will be relevant and will help us get back on track with our finances. We also just want to thank Richard Fisher as well. You know, it's great that we have men also, you know, taking the time to support us and share their knowledge with us. And I hope that everyone is left inspired. If we will be sharing the session with everyone who attended, as well as the resources that were mentioned. If you have any other further questions that you would like clarity on, please just feel free to send us an email, and then we will try and get those answers for you.
Thank you, Tendai.
Okay, thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you so much, ladies, for tuning in. And we look forward to having you join us same time, same place next week, Saturday, where we are going to be talking about all things self-love. The theme is self-love makeover. So we do hope that you'll join us for that. By the way, Rebecca, your hair looks amazing.
Thank you. I put effort. You know, like, those are the hacks that you got to put in. You wash it and you put rollers in, and then you kind of spend some time and air dry it. So lots of fun. I can't wait for next week, Saturday. Thank you.
Yes. Have a great Saturday, ladies. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, ladies.